What's up guys, welcome back to Build Fix. This is episode number 7 for September 2024. This series is all about helping anyone who wants to build a computer find the right parts to build with. I've selected 3 builds today that I will be critiquing and offering constructive criticism for, and this series is proudly sponsored by PCPartPicker.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise. Tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. A couple quick notes before we dive in. I'm going to be going over complete builds today, but if you're just looking for some deals or some bargains that I've found, check out my monthly deals series. That's a separate video. I will link that in the video's description. And of course, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, consider doing that too, because about 24 hours before I shoot this video, I post my request for Build Fix parts lists, which is where I've gotten all the lists today. There's also a random poll. This one was a little bit more competitive than last month, but the electric guitar won with 40% of the vote. Is that an electric or does that count as acoustic too? I'm kind of disappointed that banjo came in last. Any bluegrass fans out there? But yeah, VC Jester, good point. Without the sax, we'd never had 10 hours of Gandalf nodding his head. Let's start fixing builds though. Our first one comes from Jabberwocky8873. This is a new build primarily for gaming, and I appreciate that Jabberwocky included both the prospective PC and a list for the current PC that they're using. We're also bearing in mind the monitor, the MSI G273, potentially being upgraded to a G9 at some point. And also note number 2 here, needing to save money for an RTX 5000 series card. I'm going to be placing a heavy emphasis on that. Some of the questions that are outstanding though are what memory kit to go with, DDR5 6000 versus 6400, as well as possibly waiting for a 9800X3D. They're currently avoiding Asus motherboards, I'll respect that, and looking for a native vertical mount for the GPU in the case. Here's the before parts list that Jabberwocky sent over. I'm also wondering if that's a Lewis Carroll reference or a America's Best Dance Crew reference. But we got a i9-9900K, a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4 air cooler, Asus Prime Z390 motherboard, G-Skill Ripjaws 32 gig memory kit. Bit of a hodgepodge of storage with the 1TB Evo, SATA SSD, a couple M.2 2280 NVMe's, a graphics card that is definitely starting to show its age, the RTX 2070 Super 8 gig, and that's worth well below 1,000 right now, by the way. Older graphics cards and older PC hardware in general, when they get listed on certain retail websites, especially Amazon that has a lot of third-party sellers, can often be super overinflated in terms of the price that you would pay versus what it's actually worth, especially when you compare it to current generation offerings. But we also have a Fantex N2 Pro M case, which is a good one. Cooler Master Silent Pro 1000 watt power supply. Ooh, a DVD burner. Wow, a DVD burner even, Windows 10, and then the monitors, Dell and an MSI, both 1080, 75 Hz and 165 Hz respectively. Here is the upgrade build, a Ryzen 7 7800X3D, and we're just kind of accepting at this point that the 7800X3D is really the best CPU out there for gaming at the moment. Who knows if that will change like next month in October when Intel launches their next generation CPUs. Jabberwocky decided to go with an all-in-one liquid cooler this time around, $160 for the Lian Li Galahad 2 Trinity SL Inf. And I'm gonna say this is too much money. Don't pay $160 for an AIO right now unless it's got like an LCD screen on it or something like that. The motherboard is an X670E motherboard. It's about $240. I'm gonna say that one's just fine. We have both memory kits listed here, the 6000 and 6400 speed kit. I'm gonna come back to that. We've got a 1TB and a 4TB NVMe SSD, the Height Y70 case, which does have that vertical GPU mount, 1000 watt power supply. And it looks like the Height case will be paired with an assortment of Lian Li Uni fans. These are definitely specifically chosen to match the color scheme as well as have a uniform lighting scheme throughout. So this is an area where if you're investing hundreds of dollars in your fan setup, that is totally fine to do. Just recognize that you're investing a pretty fair amount of money and an aesthetic touch. So I would say don't invest that much money in your fans unless you know the rest of your components are pretty top tier in terms of performance. And then we also have those 2 monitors, the 1080 165 Hz monitor that's currently being used, as well as a potential Odyssey G9, which is 5120 by 1440 and 240 Hz as upgrade options. So for the monitors, this ultra-wide Odyssey G9 experience is really nice, and it's actually somewhat reasonably priced at about $800 right now. For build 2, I'm gonna be diving into monitor choices a little bit more, so jump ahead to that if you're a little bit more focused on monitors. For the time being, I'm gonna edit this parts list. I'm gonna see if there's anything we can swap or move around. So the first thing I did was remove the monitors so we can see the price we're looking at for just the build itself. And that's about $2,000. Keep in mind that we still have 2 memory kits listed here, so that's plus 125 bucks that we're not gonna need to spend. So first, let's choose between the memory kits. And if you're building on AM5, it's a pretty simple solution. Go with what AMD recommends, which is DDR5 6000. If you're not planning to get into memory overclocking or playing around with timings, that's just the safest way to go and the best way to get the maximum performance out of your system. Over on the Intel platform, you can get some better performance by going with higher speed DDR5 7000 plus memory. But also keep in mind that your memory's overall speed is a factor not just of this, but also of the CAS latency. And a nice way to boil that down is to look at the first word latency, 10 nanoseconds. And if we go over to the DDR5 6000 speed, which is slightly tighter timings at CL30 by its Expo defaults, we can see that we're actually looking at basically the same latency for both memory kits at 10 nanoseconds. So because on the DDR5 platform, your memory speed is tied to a few other things, we're gonna stick with DDR5 6000 and we'll ditch the 6400 speed kit. Next, I'd like to save you a fair amount of money on your all-in-one liquid cooler. I'm not gonna say don't get an AIO, although that totally would be an option. You can get away with the 7800X3D with a nice air cooler that'll cost you 35 to 45 bucks. So to see what's available, I've added some filters. We're looking at colors that are white or some combination of white and additional color. And also we're looking at an AIO that has a 360mm radiator to match the one that you've currently selected. And we're just gonna sort by lowest price. And here we can immediately see that Thermalright has the Frozen Prism ARGB, which doesn't have a picture for some reason, but this is a perfectly adequate air cooler and it's like almost $100 cheaper than the one you had alternatively selected. They also have the Frozen Infinity 360 for about 10 bucks more at $77. Enermax, if you trust them after some of their shenanigans with their earlier versions of the Liquimax, has one for 80 bucks. And there's a handful of others as well that are all lower than $100. So this is where I'd point you towards. These are all gonna match your white aesthetic as well. Just to keep things moving, I'm gonna add the Thermalright Frozen Infinity 360 to the build. And let's continue scanning to see what sort of other savings we can add. You have Microsoft Windows 11 on here, the Pro OEM DVD. $146 I think is way too much to pay for Windows 11, to be perfectly honest. You can do a clean install of Windows 11 and just not put in a key and it'll work just fine for you. You'll have a watermark in the bottom. And there are other alternative ways you can buy a Windows 11 key. I'm not going to dive into them too much here, but the focus is on the hardware. So we've now brought the total down to about $1,750. Last thing I'd look at here before we choose a video card is the power supply. A 1000 watt 80 plus platinum power supply is very nice, but it's also $185 and there are less expensive PSUs. So once again, using our filters, we're looking at 80 plus gold through titanium rated power supplies, so higher quality options, and we're looking at various white configurations. And even with that selected, we're looking at probably $100 to upwards of $100 for a power supply in this range, which is fine. But what I would say you should do is choose your video card first. And for a build of this caliber, I would say you're looking at a higher end NVIDIA option, or as you mentioned in your description, the RTX 50 series graphics card. Now the RTX 50 series has been rumored to launch like either an RTX 5080 or 5090 for like a while now. And many news outlets have said that we're expecting these to launch sometime at the end of this year. And that might still happen. We're really not sure, but we don't really have any solid information on whether it's gonna be that or whether it's gonna be delayed to like a CES announcement and a launch sometime in Q1. We do know that NVIDIA has been having yield issues with their AI GPUs that might have a knock-on effect for their consumer GPUs. All that is to say, I am somewhat dubious personally about the RTX 50 series GPUs launching this year. They might still happen, we're not sure, but since you need something to get you by right now, I would say go with the tried and true RTX 4070 Super. And the main reason is because you can get one for less than $600. It's got a 12 gig VRAM buffer. It's a solid performing card that will even line up with your Odyssey G9 if you decide to go that route. Although if you do go that route, you will want to upgrade your GPU at some point, most likely when the RTX 50 series launches. So I'm gonna add the 4070 Super for right now. We can see that that puts our estimated wattage at 550 watts for the entire system according to PCPartPicker. And then it's also best to cross-reference the recommended power supply for a 4070 Super. And you can find that out by looking up RTX 4070 Super PSU recommendation, and we find there's a range. 650 is probably a little bit on the low side, 750 is probably your sweet spot, and if you want to over budget or give yourself a little bit more breathing room for a future upgrade, 850. So nice, we can see Corsair has the RM850 for 120 bucks. That's a decent savings over the Lian Li 1000 watt option. The last thing I might consider when choosing a power supply, if I'm buying a new NVIDIA RTX 40 series or 50 series graphics card for that matter, would be having a native 12 VH power, or even more ideally 12 V2x6 connector. So for that, we can just slide this from 0 up to 1. And now we're looking at power supplies that meet all of these filters and also have a native 12 VH power connector. And yet again, for about $120, we have Thermaltake's Tough Power GF A3 Snow. There's actually several options right in this range for 120 to 130. The Asus Prime would be fine, the MSI Mag would be fine, even the Gigabyte power supply. They had an issue a while back, but according to everything I've heard, they've fixed that since then. But you know what? I'm actually gonna go with this one, the Enermax Revolution DF12. This is a slightly newer unit from Enermax, and it has the native connector, but it's actually 12 V2x6, not 12 VH power. 12 V2x6 has a slightly different plug, which is a little bit better at making sure it's seated all the way before it actually feeds up to 600 watts of juice through that connector. So I'm gonna say 10 bucks more for a little bit of additional peace of mind is a good solution there. And now we have our build at about $2,300. That's not including the monitor that might be potentially upgraded to, but it is including, gosh, roughly, I would say about $200 worth of fans that I'm not gonna remove, but could be removed if you wanted to save a few more bucks and you're focused purely on performance. But there you go, that's my fixed build for Jabberwocky. Thank you for sending that over, and let's move on to the next one. This one's from PacMappy. I don't know why I like that name. And again, we have a current existing build and a proposed future build. PacMappy says this was built in December 2021. That might have been 2022, PacMappy, because that's when AM5 launched, was September 2022. And I only know that because I just looked it up. But potentially upgrading. Currently has 3 monitors, gaming dedicated to 2 of them, 1440 144 Hz and 1080 240 Hz. Current motherboard is micro ATX, and M.2 SSD isn't quite enough, and we have about a $650 upgrade budget. And really, the question here is like, should PacMappy even upgrade at all? And for that, we will look at the build. So we're already rocking a 7700X, a Deepcool AK620 air cooler, a Gigabyte B650M motherboard, a G.Skill Flare X5 kit, DDR5 5600. That could be, and actually not very tight timings either. This memory kit looks like it could potentially be upgraded. We have a WD Black 500 gig, actually a hodgepodge again of storage with some SATA drives and NVMe. We also have a 7900 XTX graphics card, a Fractal Mesh Phi 2 case, which is full ATX, so we can swap in a full-size ATX motherboard. EVGA Supernova 850 watt power supply, Windows 11, Corsair iQ fan, and Noctua A12X15 fan, and another Corsair iQ SP140 fan. That's a bit of a mishmash of fans as well. PacMappy wants to upgrade to a $200 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler. PacMappy, I'm just gonna tell you this right now. You drop $200 worth of AIO onto your 7700X, and guess what kind of performance uplift you're gonna get? None. It's going to be exactly the same performance, I would bet, within a very, very small margin versus your air cooler that you're currently already running. So that, I would say, is a no-no right there. I would not do that upgrade. We also have a upgraded motherboard, $240 MPG B650 Edge Wi-Fi, and I am generally okay with most B650 and X670 and X670E motherboards that stick within the sub $250 range. So I think your motherboard upgrade choice there is totally fine, and then I think your AIO upgrade plans are the ones that you should either nix or hold off on. And then I was gonna say your 7700X, the upgrade from there would be the 7800X 3D, but I'm gonna say hold off on that too, because right now on your current platform, there are 9000 series CPUs that have launched. They're not big upgrades for gaming compared to the 7700X that you already have, but there is almost 100% certainly going to be a 9800X 3D CPU that launches at some point. That's currently rumored to probably be announced at CES 2025 in January and then launch sometime fairly soon after that. So I'm gonna say 2 ways to go about this upgrade right now. If you want to upgrade something right now and you appear to currently be having an issue with your micro ATX motherboard, then go ahead and drop in this MSI MPG B650 Edge Wi-Fi motherboard upgrade, and then go ahead and upgrade your memory kits. It's still gonna be a 2x16 gig kit, but you're just gonna have better timings, better speed, and it's going to give you a nice little performance boost. I think you'll probably find noticeable going from DDR5600 CL38 or whatever you're currently running. There are some totally solid choices, the DDR5 6000 here for only about 80, 90, maybe $90 plus. So choose one that looks nice or that fits your build, or go for white if you want white or something. So if you want the right now upgrade, swap out your motherboard and your memory, and then I'd say your future upgrade plans that should hopefully still stick somewhat within your $650-ish budget will be to hold out for the 9800X 3D launch sometime next year, because other than that, your build is looking really solid for right now. And also a shout out for using the 7900X TX. That's a really good video card. And it has a nice 24 gig VRAM buffer. All right, last entry here is from Juiced91. Hopefully looking for 4K resolution, would be okay with 1440, 165 to 240 hertz. The PC budget here was $2,000 and the monitor budget is $800 to $1,000, and this build is just completed. I wanted to highlight this build as like a really solid micro ATX build that Juiced91 put together. That's not to say I don't have any constructive feedback, but for anyone who's looking for small form factor, I think some good choices were made. I also like to point out that this is a non-RGB build, which I know a lot of people are into who get a little sick of the RGB vomit everywhere. And right now there are no case fans, but the temps are currently manageable, about 75C for the CPU and 70 for the GPU. And the big question is, what monitor should be paired with this system? So let's start out by looking at the system. We have a 7800X 3D, of course, and please note that the pricing for the 7800X 3D has gotten a lot worse just recently. The cheapest you can find it for is about $420 over on Best Buy. These Amazon listings for $330 or anything like $350 or less are BS. And I'm at least happy that Amazon is whack-a-moling these illegitimate sellers down with some regularity, but that still means that you'll occasionally see pricing here that is a little bit better than what's actually available. Beyond that though, we have a Noctua NHD12L Chromax Black cooler. This is a bit more on the expensive side for the cooler, but since we are working with a smaller form factor build and you want something that's high performance and that will fit, Noctua does have a really good track record. So for that one, I think you're okay, about $110, although there might be some less expensive options that could be swapped in. We have a Gigabyte B650M Aorus Elite motherboard for $190. Solid price to performance there. We have the Team Group T-Create Expert memory kit, actually the same one I just recommended in the previous build, which is all the memory you need for $90. You don't need to spend any more than that. Here with the SSD, apart from the cooler, is I'd say the only place I would say I would have swapped this for another option. But rounding things out, we have another 7900X TX 24 gig. These are becoming harder to find, by the way. There were only 2 listings that I saw. We have an Ncase M2, which isn't listed on PCPartPicker, but you can still go to a manual part entry. So I added that, and Ncase has all these listed on their website. They have a few different varieties of the M, or I should say the M2 round angle grater. And a cool thing that Ncase has done with these is you can choose your color, and then you can choose a flat pack case kit that requires some assembly, but is a little bit less expensive, or you can get it assembled and save yourself a little bit of time not having to put it all together. I like having those options. Rounding things out though, we have the Corsair SF850 power supply, and it is difficult to find low price 80 plus platinum 850 watt power supplies. And that is one of the things that escalates the cost of small form factor builds, is the power supply can actually be something that gets a lot more expensive because you have to stick to SFX. That said, this is a really powerful build for a little over $2,000. And again, just a couple small changes I would make. Your Samsung 990 Pro 2TB, I mean, are you doing video editing? Are you doing something that actually does heavy reads and writes to your M.2 NVMe SSD? If you're just gaming, you don't need to overspend on an SSD. There are plenty of 2TB SSDs for $90 to $110 that I might point you towards, but if you are a little bit more paranoid about your storage, Samsung does have a really solid track record. That's part of the reason they're able to charge more for their SSDs, is because they do make really good ones. But I would say save yourself $40 or so by going with the 990 Evo 2TB versus the 990 Pro 2TB. That's $130 versus $170. And we can just remove the Pro, save a few bucks. And yes, for anyone looking to build a small form factor system right now, this is a really solid all-around build. Moving on to your monitor question though, thankfully, like just today as I'm shooting this video, over on Monitors Unboxed, Tim has just done a video about 4K OLED monitors and what he would personally buy. I have a huge amount of respect for Tim, Monitors Unboxed, Hardware Unboxed, Tim and Steve over there. Tim has the advantage of going hands-on with a bunch of different monitors, and that's actually challenging to do unless you're a reviewer who has the opportunity to do that, or you have the chance to go into a retail store somewhere where you can look at a bunch of monitors side by side. The nice thing about the current state of OLED monitors though is if you can claw your way up to a certain price point, which is around $800 to $1,200, there's a bunch of really good options, and that was Tim's conclusion towards the end of this video, is in some ways you can't really go wrong. This video is linked in the description, so check it out if you want a bit more in-depth commentary on certain features that you might want to go for, like if you want matte or glossy or display inputs. If you need DisplayPort 2.1, for example, that might cost a little bit more versus 1.4a. But as we can see here, the monitors that Tim was looking at, we've got at least the MSI option for under 1,000. We got the Dell option that is about 1,000, although you should verify depending on the listing that you're looking at, because over on Newegg it's being sold, I think, yeah, this is being sold by a third party for $1,500. Don't pay that. But Asus has the ROG Swift PG32 UCDP. This one has a nice feature of being 4K 240Hz, but you can also switch it to 1080 480Hz. MSI has a couple options in the MAG 321. There's a UPX and a URX. This one's currently the best price at about $900. Gigabyte has the Aorus F032U2, which again has really fast response time. That one's coming in just shy of $1,200. So Juiced91, that video is linked in the description. Head over to Monitors Unboxed. Tell Tim I sent you if you stop by over there, because he does a great job of reviewing the monitors and not just saying, here's the one to buy. It's usually like, what are your needs? And then here is the monitor that best fits your needs, because not every monitor is like a one size fits all for everyone. But guys, that is gonna wrap it up for this episode of Build Fix. Thank you once again for watching. A big thank you to PCPartPicker for sponsoring this series, and check the video's description down below for links to the PCPartPicker lists, as well as some of the individual parts that I've talked about today. If you want to hit the thumbs up button on this video, if it helped you out at all, definitely do that. Stay tuned for my tech deals video for September, where I'll be covering specific deals on specific components. And of course, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, consider doing that as well. One final shout out for my store. Check out paulshardware.net if you want to buy yourself some high quality merchandise to help support me and the channel. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you all in the next one.